Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cowboys. Locked On Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter, as always, at Marcus_Mosher. And joining me today, as always, is my co-host, Leighton McCool. You can check him out on Twitter, at McCoolBCB. You can also listen to him on the Best Coast Boys podcast. Leighton, what's going on, sir?
The world is trying to stop me from getting you the training camp information that all of you need. The power went out right before we were trying to record. I'm all sunburnt. Work has been crazy, but nothing will stop me, folks. I am here to give you the good news of my notes on training camp, and I'm excited to do it.
Yeah, so the Cowboys practice on Saturday and Sunday. They are off on Monday. And Landon was actually out at practice both days to give you guys a great recap. So rather than trying to go through every little bit of practice, we're just going to talk about specific players who practiced well or maybe didn't practice well. I want to start with Dalton Schultz, Landon, because I really feel like, from what I saw on Twitter and talking to people, he was the star of Sunday's practice. What do you have to say about what you saw from Schultz?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that whole sequence that kind of really showed Schultz, really highlighted Schultz, was during a team period. And actually the offense was kind of struggling a little bit to kind of get the ball moving. And I hate to say this, but then they found Keanu Neal covering Dalton Schultz, and they took advantage of that matchup at least 3 times on that one 2-minute drive. So I thought the Dalton Schultz looks great. I mean, it's not really a surprise. I don't know that I noticed a huge leap or anything like that. I mean, besides the actual leap that he took to catch the ball. And also the leap in play last year. Yeah. But I think that, more specifically what it felt like was happening there was that Dak found a mismatch and just kept on hitting it until they basically scored from it. So I think that's actually the note from that, was that, I mean, certainly Dalton looks good, but I think it's more concerns about Keanu Neal and covering tight ends, and the fact that Dak was attacking a obvious weakness until they made him stop.
Well, let's get to Keanu Neal in just a second, but I want to stay on Schultz because we talked about it a couple weeks ago, right? Like Dalton Schultz versus Blake Jarwin. There's probably not really a tight end competition. And from what it sounds like, the Cowboys on Sunday were just trying to limit some of the reps of Blake Jarwin kind of coming back from this ACL injury. Do you think there is a competition, or do you think they're just going to rotate these guys in depending on the matchups?
Look, just to kind of pull it back, my 10,000-foot view note of the offense in general is that they have entirely too many skill players that they need to get the ball. I mean, we're laughing, but honestly, they have one more running back and one more tight end than they can put on the field, on a regular basis, that they would like to get the ball. It's an embarrassment of riches in the skill section for the Cowboys offense. So I think that they need to find a way to involve Dalton Schultz, throughout the season. I think if you see what the direction of kind of evolving modern forward thinking offenses, it's more of an evolution back to 12 personnel. It's it's moving past 11 personnel and back. I mean, this thing always constantly shifts, right? Yep. This has always been the case. I mean, the Rams ran 85% 11 personnel in 2018, and then they realized that they overdid it and needed to kind of pull it back and started playing a bunch of 12 personnel. I mean, this is what these offensive gurus do, is they shift with the tides. Yep. I think for the Cowboys, they have 2 incredible tight ends, or 2 very good tight ends that both have earned opportunity to get the ball and to get playing time. And the 12 personnel is obviously a useful personnel group. So I would like to see maybe a slight uptick in 12 personnel, just because you have a high level of confidence in both those players. And I think that Dalton Schultz, even if he isn't the starter, needs to see significant snaps, because he's a good player who can be a problem for defenses.
He is a good player. I do want to see him on the field more. And I just think the offense functions better with Dalton Schultz because I think Jarwin is a better receiver, but I think the difference in blocking is so drastic that I think I'd rather just have Dalton Schultz on the field, especially if he's winning, in the receiving game like he was on Sunday. Let's talk about Keanu Neal, Leighton. He's making the switch from strong safety to linebacker. How has that been going so far?
Outside of what I just discussed, it seems like it was pretty good. He did get picked on a little bit by Schultz in that 2-minute drill. But I also have seen multiple plays where, he's knocking balls loose from ball carriers. He's where he's supposed to be. He's made some positive plays as well. So it's not all just that 1-2-minute drill that it seems like he got a little bit picked on. So, I think he's been doing okay for the most part. I think that it's he hasn't really stood out other than, like I said, the kind of being picked on in the 2-minute drill and then the forced fumble that I noticed. So we did see him and Parsons running with the ones during that 2-minute drill. So there does seem to be kind of a rotation going on with the linebacking group. And then also some other players as well. The defense really seems fluid, in a way that there isn't like this. And it's early, so they're definitely trying combinations out. It may be less fluid by the time we get to the regular season, but as of right now, it sure seems like they're doing a lot of kind of different combinations of personnel and seeing what sticks.
So there's no reason to be concerned about Keanu Neal yet, right?
Not yet. No. Again, it was really just one really bad 2-minute drill, one small portion of practice. So we're going to give him a pass. And Dalton Schultz is a good player, so there's something there.
All right, let's take a quick break so I can tell you guys about Bet Online, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball season is in full swing, and you can track all of the action on Bet Online. Before the next pitch, head over to Bet Online on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore, as this is your chance to get into the game as teams prep for their runs to the playoffs. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, your online sportsbook experts. All right, Leighton, I want to read you a tweet from Michael Galkin, and I'd love to have you comment on this one. So this one came yesterday after practice. Again, Michael Galkin, great follow. Cowboys linebacker Leighton Vander Esch looks at home at Will linebacker. And he's in great shape, moving sideline to sideline. It's clear he put in the offseason work, just showed great leverage, used to make a touch tackle in the open field. How do you think Vander Esch looked during practice on Saturday and Sunday?
I think he's looked good. He's looked a lot more confident in what he's doing. He just seems to be moving with more assuredness of where he's supposed to be. And that means he's playing faster and he's, reacting faster. I mean, whether it's in coverage, I've seen him, be a little bit, he's been sticky in coverage in certain situations. I've seen him make a tackle for loss on an 11-11, kind of run period. Again, all of this is pre-pads. So, a lot of the run stuff, it's kind of tough to determine, what exactly, who's getting tackled or if it would have lasted, but he was able to knife through the line of scrimmage and make the read correctly. And, unless he really whiffed on the tackle, he would have gotten a tackle for loss. So I have noticed an uptick to return to form, I guess what I would say. It seemingly in the way he's moving, in the way he's playing with a level of confidence. Now, part of the problem with Leighton Vander Esch has been, tackling issues. It's just kind of finishing. So we definitely need to see that on the other side of padded practices. But from what I've seen up front, as far as just getting to where he needs to go, competing at an athletic level with the people that he's going against, he looks good. He looks like he should, like we expected him to coming into last year.
So one of the problems that we had when we were talking about these linebackers, was it 2 weeks ago, about Leighton Vander Esch is what's his best position? Because we know it's not middle linebacker where he has to take on blocks. And is he too big to play the weak side linebacker? But it sounds like from what you're telling me, he looks quick. He looks fast. It looks like he's actually the player that we saw back in 2018. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, again, I think we got to look at the tackling because that's
the biggest problem.
That's a huge part of what made Leighton so good his rookie year is that he didn't miss a lot of tackles, and he was, he has long arms, and he kind of just envelops ball carriers. So I would say the front part of what makes him good, the arriving on time, the speed to get outside, the quick reaction, that seems to be, back in the sense that I feel like he looks like he's playing. He's a lot more comfortable playing the position that he's playing. So we need to see him tackle a little bit, but I do think that, in a rotation, in a situation where maybe, he's not having to take all the nickel snaps and be the full-time will linebacker in base, I feel confident that Leighton's, could potentially have a return to form year.
All right, I want to touch on one more linebacker, Micah Parsons, just really quickly. I know Mike McCarthy said they had him doing too much after the first practice. I wonder if they got some data back from. I believe they're wearing these vests that help show like how much work they're putting into a practice.
GPS trackers.
Yes. What did you see from him on Saturday and Sunday?
I mean, I saw him running from drill to drill, and then I saw him. So they basically, they separate out little pods, all throughout the field, and everyone's kind of working on different things based on position, right? And they have linebackers doing, kind of read and react drills. They've got a pass rushers down here kind of working on techniques and get off and that sort of thing. And, here's Parsons rushing against Tyron Smith and taking a couple of snaps, and then, running over to the other side of the field to do some read and react. I mean, and he's making plays kind of everywhere he's going. Like, he's reacting on the ball. He's getting his hands on the football. I mean, he's doing things that you're just like, that are eye-opening, I mean, he's not like beating Tyron Smith, like, consistently or even more than maybe once or twice. And he's getting his hands on the football in the passing game. He's running up the field with CeeDee Lamb on certain things. I mean, the breadth of what this guy can do is incredible. It really is. And if this defense really is going to be kind of a matchup based defense, which it sure seems like it is, just based on the kind of personnel they've collected and everything, and again, all the talk, let's see if we can believe it. He's going to be an incredibly valuable piece. I mean, I know people talked about it on the radio, but I've got the video. He lined up at defensive tackle and took it in one of the pass rushing drills and went up right up the middle. I mean, so
did he get pressure on the quarterback?
I mean, no, he didn't. But I mean, he also did it once. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, Neville Gallimore didn't get more.
Well, hold on. I want to go to Tyron really quickly. Tyron has been incredibly kind and nice during these practices. I just want to say that.
I want to talk about that too. Well, beyond that, beyond what you're saying, like not crushing Parsons for sure. After practice,
yes,
he spent a lot of time with Parsons, and Parsons was able to beat him at the end of that whole thing. Was able to get him on a spin move because he was doing the taco, right, where he was getting upfield and then just spinning before anyone ever touched him. And I think Tyron was kind of teaching him, like, hey, you need to lean into me a little bit, and then he kind of was able to get it going. So. Say what you want about Parsons. He came to practice early to work with Quinn. He stayed late to work with Tyron Smith. Yep. He's clearly very serious about trying to, have an important role in this team. And from what I've seen, there's no doubt that he's going to be an incredibly useful piece this year.
I mean, I could be wrong on this, but it seems like just from the outside looking in that Dan Quinn's two quote unquote project players this year are Micah Parsons and like Randy Gregory, right? Those are the two guys it seems like he's been putting in a lot of extra work with. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, we're well past project with Gregory.
Yeah, but okay, let's
talk about Gregory.
For like special attention, right? Like guys.
Yeah, sure. Certainly. He's certainly in the sense that he clearly has a relationship and cares about developing those players. But we should segue that into a conversation about
Randy Gregory. That's fine, because it sounds like from everybody who's been out there that Randy Gregory's been ruining practice in a good way. But go ahead and talk about what you've seen from Gregory so far.
I mean, he's blowing up reverses. He's getting sacks. He's beating Tyron, at a pace that I haven't seen since, Lawrence, a couple of years ago when he was in training camp, and DeMarcus Ware before that. I mean, he's just – and look, let's be clear too, like kind of going that route. Tyron Smith looks incredible. Like Tyron Smith this isn't like, working his way back in. Tyron Smith looks ready to go.
He's in the best shape of his life, like legitimately the best shape.
I'm not taking his word for it. I've seen the last 6 or 7 training camps of Tyron Smith, and this is as good as he's looked.
Same for Collins. Collins is skinny, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you can call a 310-pound guy skinny, he's slim.
He's as skinny as slim as you get at 310. He is. You're right. But yeah, go back to Gregory. He's developed a couple of inside moves, and like his ability, he's so dangerous on the outside. Like Tyron is so concerned with it. Even Tyron Smith, who's really got incredible feet and long length, he's so concerned about the speed on the outside and his ability to dip under that they've got to get out quick. And now what Randy is doing is he's like on his third step, he's taking 1, 2, and then third, he's immediately changing directions back inside, and he's got a rip. And the tackles are so concerned at getting outside that they're leaving huge space for him. And he doesn't need a lot of space in the first place. He gets skinny really well. So that's put a lot of pressure on tackles. And that kind of combination of that speed dip with the inside rip is, that's a really great way to hammer offensive tackles, because you can't be correct there. So he's doing that in pass rush drills, in run drills. He killed 2 reverses for like huge tackles for loss, and on top of that, he's also doing a good job of just kind of keeping contained and playing the run well. I mean, Randy Gregory has been maybe the best player out here at camp.
That's fantastic.
Like it's almost every time he's out there, he's affecting the play somehow, and it's just been an absolute joy to watch.
Randy Gregory is one of the few players in this defense where if he hits his ceiling this year, he can dramatically change basically the entire outcome of this Cowboy defense. Because if he's the player that we think he can be, I mean, you're talking about a guy that's easy double-digit sacks and just a game wrecker opposite of DeMarcus Lawrence. I have one more question for you on the defensive line. Obviously, DeMarcus Lawrence is going to be out a little bit of a while. I mean, not concerned about him for the regular season, but who is the next best defensive lineman you saw at practice?
Not just defensive end, but just defensive linemen in general. Linemen. Overall, I mean,
overall. If I had to say right now, who was the most impressive for you there?
Probably Gallimore. I mean, Gallimore's been really good, and I haven't seen him get a ton of sacks or anything, but he's consistently getting pressure against some of the bigger guys. Osa has been actually pretty good too. I knew you'd love
Osa. That one's a little cheating right there.
I mean, he got a couple. He's gotten sacks, I think, in the last 2 practices, if I'm not mistaken. They've done some really interesting things with Basham. I saw him rushing in a nickel lineup at defensive tackle.
Okay.
And then so I think he's shown some things, not really flash, but as far as a third guy, like he's shown something. I mean, Bradley and I can legit rush the passer. I think McCarthy gave a whole synopsis of him yesterday in his press conference, and I think that's appropriate. Like, that he can get to the quarterback. He can affect the quarterback.
Just everything else.
Let's see if we can get the rest of it. Yeah, because honestly, they have something there with him as a pass rusher.
All right, we're going to continue to talk about practice from Saturday and Sunday. But before we do that, I just want to tell you guys about Built Bar. It's the absolute best tasting protein bar out there. It's hard to even explain it. Real chocolate with amazing flavors. It's just a great combination of low calories, high protein, and low sugar with no crazy additives. Best of all, they taste fantastic. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll get 15% off your first box at BuiltBar.com. All right, 2 more things I want to touch on before we leave. First of all, CeeDee Lamb, hype is real, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we haven't seen the kind of, everyday highlight reel stuff that we've seen with Dez quite yet. But, I mean, we've seen already several different things where you're just like, wow, including that really fantastic. Yeah, the separation. I mean, he's getting open. He's finding holes. I honestly – the defensive coverage, especially the first day I was there, has been pretty decent. I mean, especially versus our expectations, right? So there has, the first day I was there, it was defense kind of ruled the day. A little bit better for this offense the second day, and CeeDee was able to get a lot more separation. But you can just see, he's put on some weight. You can really see it in his legs. He's really kind of added some muscle there, so to kind of armor to take that stuff on. So, and he's just, he looks big and strong, and
it doesn't look like he lost any of the quickness and
no, none of that's gone. That's all still there. So he could be a real threat this year. Not that that's surprising to anybody.
No, that's why I didn't want to spend a lot of time on him, because we know CeeDee's good. Like we don't need to talk about it. It's kind of like we talk like Dak, right? We could do a whole show on Dak every single day, and Jerry Jones called it the best practice he's ever seen from Dak. But we don't need to do that. There's other more intriguing things to talk about, like the secondary, Landon. Kelvin Joseph, boss man fat. I want to hear how he played. Donovan Wilson sounds like he made some plays over the weekend. And then what about that free safety spot? We're going to talk about Malik Hooker later in the week. But what about KZ? What about Wilson? What are you seeing on that side of the ball?
Well, let's start with the corners. Joseph, I thought, looked good. That's what I mean. Mostly my concern with Joseph is how does he physically look, right? Because we've heard concerns about he may potentially have dealt with a COVID situation.
Yeah,
he definitely came.
Yep.
Yeah, and definitely that too. That doesn't seem to be the case. He seems to be in good shape. He's moving really well. Several different wide receivers have tried him down the field, but it's not happening. He's able to get down the field.
It's his best trait, winning down the field.
And honestly, it's funny because he's wearing that 24 jersey. It's the complete
opposite of what we're used to.
You see him get it down the field. He's able to turn around and find the ball. And I'm like, what's going on? So that part has not been an issue for him. I haven't necessarily seen him, pick off any footballs or do anything like absolutely, he looks like mind blowing.
That's the most important.
But he certainly looks like he belongs, and he's certainly not being pushed around or having any problems versus any of the receivers he's going against. So I think it's more just kind of continuing to get his feet wet.
What about the safeties?
So, Donovan Wilson obviously, has made a couple plays. You've seen him break on some balls. I do feel like there might have been 2 or 3 different times when I saw him blow a coverage and give up a big play too. But I think, there's clearly some kind of concern with the team and or at least they're trying to cover their bases here by the Malik Hooker stuff that, we can talk about later. But, I think, like I said, the coverage overall has been a little bit better than I expected. I kind of will lump the safeties in there because I don't know that they're specifically covering up anything, but they're part of the overall coverage that's making Dak need to look away or need Dak to pull it down and try to move or they seemingly were doing a good job of kind of denying first reads at least. And then, maybe things would break down once scramble drill happened, but that's kind of, what Dak does. So, I could definitely see still feeling like they needed some more consistency at the safety position. Curse is in there a lot, and he's good for some things and not for others. I mean, really,
you're not way to say that.
Well, I mean, look, without the pads on, Curse isn't really able to showcase what he does well.
Yeah.
Really.
No.
So. I think that there is still some of that. Yeah. So I'm interested to see exactly how the safety position shakes out once the pads come on, because there's just a lot of uncertainty. It's just a lot of rotating a bunch of different guys in there, and upwards of 4 different guys are getting starter snaps, including Thompson. So it's just they need to sort it out. They need to get all their players in one spot and kind of figure out who's the most consistent. Are we going to rotate the package? I mean, I think they want to get to a spot where they feel like they have 3 solid safeties, and if
they can rotate in and use, and
if Hooker can come in and kind of provide that starter level, then now you've got like Donovan Wilson and maybe Kazee and maybe one more guy kind of being solid rotational safeties that can just come in certain packages.
I do find it interesting that the Cowboys reached back out to Malik Hooker after 1 day of practice. Like, did they not like what they saw from KZ? Are they worried about his workload and giving him too many snaps? That's something we'll talk about on tomorrow's show. But one last thing, Landon, before we go. Of all the other receivers outside of Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Cedric Wilson, Noah Brown, who's been the most impressive to you?
Malik Turner. I mean, he's shown up a lot of different times, made plays, I think, every single day. Just big and strong and makes plays. When he gets called on. I mean, I've noticed him several different times just kind of going, oh, who's 17 again? Oh, yeah, Malik Turner. Yeah. Just like that. So Drumbeat. I think we should start listed for drum beats there. He could be this year's name a guy. Training camp wide receiver that we aren't sure is going to make the team and may or may not.
Can we call it the Kenyon Rambo Award? From is that a poll?
That's a name. Yeah, we can call it.
How about the Terrence Copper role or the Sam Hurd role?
The Sam Hurd. Well, Hurd actually played. That's
what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, the guy that just had a really good training camp that ended up making the roster and playing well.
I don't know that Hurd is the guy that we should be naming any kind of awards after, or at least not that kind of award,
Yeah. Kenyon Rambo Award. That's what we're going to call it.
Let's do that instead. Yeah.
Jamaica Rector. That's another one that I like.
That's a good one. I like Jamaica Rector. Yeah.
There you go. All right. That is it for today's show. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, you can download and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow the show at Locked On Cowboys. You can follow Landon at McCool BCB. And I'm at Marcus _Mosher. We will see you next time.